Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm painting a snail on a 5x7" wood panel in oil paints, and I'm going to work in the Alla Prima technique. I start by getting rid of that nasty white canvas by diluting a selection of random colours with odourless mineral spirit and a touch of liquid fine detail. This gives me a mid-tone to play around with, and I'm able to judge my colours and tones much better. I then give it a rub down with a paper towel so the panel is stained, and I'm ready to jump straight in with the drawing. I'm using diluted burnt umber with a touch of liquid, and I'm sketching out my little friends freehand, and I'm constantly looking at my reference picture, making sure that I'm happy with the proportions. For a more complex drawing, I sometimes grid up the panel and the reference picture, and I work from square to square. This is common practice, and it makes getting those proportions much easier. But for these smaller paintings, I usually just eyeball it. But you might want to try the other method if you're having trouble with the drawing. I tend to start with the background first. For this painting, I've used my palette knife and mixed cobalt turquoise, viridian green, cadmium yellow, ultramarine blue and titanium white with a touch of liquid fine detail. Backgrounds are fun because when you're painting a subject, you can add any colour choice you like. I decided to go for these cool variations to contrast with the warm and dark colours of the snail. I usually focus on putting my darkest parts in first, and I like to add these tones next to the lightest part of the subject for that 3D effect. I like to use fairly large brushes for the backgrounds, and I use plenty of paint too. I then clean my brush and add in the lighter variations next to the darkest part of the subject. Now, I really love using my palette knife for those juicy paint textures. I still have a lot of paint left over, so I can pick up the lightest paint and apply it over the darkest colour variation and vice versa. For some more added interest, I can scratch and cut through the wet paint with the side of the knife. For the subject, I'm using the same brush that I drew him with for the dark pattern on his shell. I'm using a mix of ultramarine blue, burnt umber and a touch of magenta. I keep my colour mixes really simple. For the beige colour of the shell, I mix up titanium white with a touch of burnt umber, and I adjust the tone accordingly. I love working on these Alla Prima paintings. I make sure that I keep all of my brushes super clean between brush strokes by rinsing them in odourless mineral spirits and wiping them with a paper towel. I block in these mid-tones of colours, and I'm being careful not to overblend any part of this small painting. I also use a lot of different shaped brushes to achieve a variety of effects. Here's one of my favourite things to do with small details, adding wet paint onto, well, wet paint. I start with those dark details, and I'm being very careful not to create mud, which is very easy to do with this wet on wet technique. My lightest tones are the thickest and juiciest paint. I want these brightest parts to really stand out, so I don't use any mineral spirits, just a drop of liquid fine detail. For this highlight on the shell, I'm using titanium white with just a touch of cadmium yellow. I absolutely love dragging that wet paint through and creating light. It's one of my favourite things about painting in Alla Prima. After I've smoothed out the slimy part of my little friends with my blending brush, I go on to work some more of those finer details. I'm using my mix of titanium white with just a touch of cadmium yellow for those small little highlights. But I'm not going too crazy with this, just a few details here and there are all I need. My blending brush is great for softening certain areas. For example, here I can simply dab the tail ends of the snail to create that distant look and blend certain elements of the shell into the wet background. I can work those finer details with my liner brush to enhance those darker areas. I do the same with my lighter tones with another brush, and making sure to clean them after each brush stroke. I go back to the shell to enhance the darker areas to really bring that dark colour out, and I can drag interesting marks through the wet paint to really get that sense of character and texture of the shell. For my final details, this is where I stand back from the painting and really try and see what I need to change and what edges need to be soft or hard, and it's my last chance to make slight alterations. and smooth out certain areas. My knife also comes into play towards the end of the painting for some added highlights and abstraction. I love this knife. I actually feel like a ninja when I'm working with it. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the technique I've used today, then please feel free to comment below. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, then please do so and hit that little bell. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now, everyone.